Hello, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, comrades. I'm Tommy Fritz the Great, and you join me on part 2 of our lunar adventure. So, if you remember, in the previous part of the mission, we sent the Stanislav Mark I into orbit around the moon with our pilots Bill, Jebediah, and Jonvis Kerman. You'll probably notice that I actually reloaded the save because I did have more than one attempt at doing this recording, I must confess. And you will also notice that the orbit's a lot less messed up because we were almost in a polar orbit last time. I just go ahead and bring up the nav ball on the map screen. Now, what I'd quite like to do is land somewhere in the vague vicinity of this crater here. So, in order to do that, we're going to have to move to a higher sort of deorbit burn point, because we want to gain as much height as possible without gaining too much speed simultaneously. So I guess now is the time to burn before we do anything else. And we just align ourselves with our retrograde marker and then begin burning. And you can see that we've already dropped out of orbit, and we are in fact going to hit the moon. So it's a certainty then that we are going to land. However, in what state is the question. No matter, we shall proceed. And there goes the camera, and there in fact is Kirby. So, I think I should probably bring up my resources tab. Right, I can't see that crater yet, maybe that's it. I don't believe it is, but yes, it would be. I think we can go ahead and time warp down to about 25 kilometers before we start our burn. I'm gonna go for a sort of slow, easy burn just to use as little fuel as possible, as efficiently as we can, before we then switch to our landing engine. Nonetheless, all seems to be going well, and, well, 2 of our astronauts at least are happy. Jebediah is just some kind of crazy guy, and Bill is just a bit weird. I think Jonvis is the only one with some kind of rationale or reserve at this point. And we're doing 352 meters per second at 20 kilometers. Well, it's actually a bit less than 20 kilometers. I'm going to start knocking the throttle up slightly. And 295 meters per second, 90 meters per second. And I think we are still going a bit too quickly. Let me just throttle up a bit more. At 199, 189. 12 kilometers up, and I think this is going to be a close run thing. (120 meters per second). 99 meters per second. The skipper engine is about to expire. And 70 meters per second, but doing good. $50 meters per second, 9,200 meters up. And there goes the skipper engine. And we're going to drop the landing legs before we forget. I chose this sort of tripod design for this lander because it kept the weight down, kept the construction aspect simple, and providing we land pretty square on the surface, it's not going to be much of a problem in terms of tipping over. And just checking the radar altitude. I'm going to nudge the throttle up a little bit more. Just to be safe. And it's dropping, so I'm going to throttle fully up. Oh, I accidentally hit the X key. $30 meters per second. Whoa, textures went all messed up. And that's about enough for now. And we can slowly rock the rocket back and forth in order to cancel out any extra momentum we might gain on any given axis at a time. Here we come now. $9.6 meters per second, 9.7. I can't quite see how far we are up. I'm sort of eyeballing this and using the radar altitude as a bit more of a guide because I don't really know where the ground is, but I'm going to try and improvise. $7.3. This is good. 500 meters up. 7 meters per second. Excuse me. And we're going to rock that way a bit. 6.2. Down we come. $5.9, 5.8, 7, 6. And the moon is right there. We are less than 100 meters up, and I can't see a shadow or anything to give me an indication of how high how far we've got to go. Right, oh my god, we're going a bit too far. I guess I'd nudge the throttle up a bit. Oh my god, it's right there. That's so close. Oh, we've throttled up too much, but oh my word. .2 meters per second, that's slow enough. We can hold it at this speed, but gotta chase this little reticule around just to keep everything in line, but and there it is. Yes! 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 We've landed on the moon! Bill, Jebediah and Jonvis Cohen have become the first Kerbals to land on the moon. That is fantastic. Right, we'll turn off that. And let's get them out. I'll see if I can extend this ladder. There we are. And let's see if it goes all the way down. No. Anyway. And Jebediah Kerman, Comrade Jebediah. And there it is! Jebediah Kerman, the first Kerbal to fall onto the lunar surface. And the gravity is high enough that he can run. Fantastic, we did it. We can plant a flag ceremonially. And Kerbin rises in the distance. Before long we'll be heading back, but in the meantime we can enjoy just running around on the surface. Actually, I'd quite like to investigate this crater, so I think I can just jetpack there. Ow. I don't think that actually hurts in zero gravity. Anyway. This is pretty cool. This is a pretty darn cool place. We're almost 500 meters from where we started, and we probably should start slowing down before we hit the ground. Hooray. Awesome. Well, yeah, this is... I'm not quite sure where we've landed. We've landed in a sort of little bowl. Yeah, we landed on the rim of a small crater. I think I think we can get Jonvis out onto the surface. Have a little walk around. Okay, after some many happy hour strutting around the moon or hovering across that crater on our jetpack. I think it's now time to return to the place that you can see above the head of Jebediah Kerman. So if we pan the camera around, there is the Stanislav Mark I landing vessel, and I can use my jetpack to kind of launch myself onto the side of the command module. If I just pan around like this, and then inch forward a little bit, and there's the hatchway just visible on the side. And just to line it up with the door so that it don't fall straight off again. Press. No, I missed it a bit. And whoa, no, that went wrong. Luckily we didn't hit the flag. And we'll just get back on our feet again and get a better angle of approach. Slow down a bit, and no, not quite. And maybe this time, yes. F, board, awesome. Okay, we still want to switch to the flag, and we get this guy in. Do the same thing. Just line him up with the hatch. I'm not quite sure how his helmet can actually fit through that hatch, but that's just a minor technicality. And once again, we grab the ladder. Okay, we've got a full crew. Now, as you can see, we landed pretty near the equator. And if I just bring up the nav board on the map screen so that I can control the rocket without having to go into scenic mode. And I'd like to take off on the 90-degree mark just so I can get an equatorial orbit, which makes everything much more coplanar relative to each other, so that I can do my burns and everything with a lot more ease. Okay, so I'm just preparing for takeoff, making sure everything's okay. And throttle up. Slowly lift off. Don't want to wreck a landing leg or bounce off an errant rock. And we tilt over towards the 90 ever so slightly. We don't want to go over too quickly because I don't have that much delta V from this small LV909 landing engine. And you just saw there that I raised the 3 tripedial legs because, of course, we won't need them anymore. And if I just check the map screen now, the zenith in our arc is 3.8 kilometers, and we'll be there in 29-30 seconds. So that looks good. I think now if we just focus on getting enough speed and velocity sideways rather than aiming for height, because then we just end up wasting more fuel than we actually need to. And as we have one last look at the moon from the command module window, doing 105 meters per second, you can see our arc is getting rapidly bigger, and all seems to be going well as I just tilt over in order to fine-tune the nose of the rocket into the most efficient burning poise so that I don't waste any more fuel than I need to, because the fuel in that tank underneath the RCS tank is all we have to get back home, so every drop is precious. Which is also why I don't have the throttle all the way up, because we don't need it all the way up. But anyway, yeah, it's looking good. We're bang on the 90-degree mark, and you can see that we seem to have escaped the moon's gravity somewhat. And it it's less likely to want to pull us back into contention. We're 12.4 kilometers, 12.8, 9, 13 kilometers away from our flag positioning. And that seems to match up with the values on the altimeter, which is always a good sign. 255 meters per second, and the end of our arc is almost touching that massive crater where I actually intended to land in the first place but didn't quite make it to. But that doesn't really matter. Okay, everything seems to be looking good. You can see that I've just pitched over a little bit more, not quite all the way over to the horizon line, because I still do want to gain a little bit more altitude than I already have. We've got just less than half our fuel left, and you can see that our landing position is 24.1 kilometers away, and our arc looks very good at the moment. I'm just going to cut the throttle and let us coast right up to our apoapsis. If I just time warp up here and then stop, we're back to normal again, and then turn on the RCS and swivel all the way around to the horizon, and then burn once more to inject ourselves into a lunar orbit. And we're throttling up. We're already doing over 300 meters per second, so we're not going to need that much more delta V in order to get into lunar orbit, but I'm still going to throttle up anyway, because I don't want to pass up the apoapsis and then sort of end up falling back down to the Earth, or the moon rather. And there's our landing site in the distance. Nothing really remarkable going on at the moment, so I guess we can just sit back and enjoy the ride. That's about all there is to say for this section of the flight. And yeah, the engines are performing their job very well, better than I expected, considering the landing engine was pretty pathetic on the way down. We had to start burning ridiculously early, if you'll remember, although that skipper engine with the remaining fuel in those tanks did help us out quite a lot. And there we are, we're in orbit, and I can just cut the throttle with the X key and then prepare for our moon escape to return back to Kerbin. Now if I just pan the camera around here, you can see that we are on a slight inclination, but there's nothing we can do about that, and there's no real point in trying to adjust it because it's such a minute inclination that there's nothing we really need to worry about. It's not like we're going to miss Kerbin at any rate, because we are so close, obviously. Nonetheless, I think I switched targets on the map view at this point. And here is the maneuver node system that I'm going to set up in order to take us all the way, to slingshot us out of lunar orbit. So you can see that these two blue nodules that I highlighted change the inclination of your orbit, and you can actually shift your orbit left or right. The two purple nodules also change the inclination, so they concentrate on actually flipping the orbit round. And then of course the two green ones, the prograde and retrograde, are there so that you can tell the maneuver node system whether you want to speed up or slow down. And you can see that I'm just sort of playing around with the prograde vector, trying to get the periapsis as close to Kerbin as possible, so that I need the least amount of fuel to slow down and then hit the atmosphere. But anyway, I'm just going to turn on to the maneuver node marker, the triangular blue bit on the navball, turn on the SAS, and then I have 37 minutes till my burn, so I guess a bit of time warping is going to have to be necessary. And you can see that we're going to have to use 222.6 meters per second of delta V, and with this engine it should take us 55 seconds. And so I guess if we time warp, and then we can start our burn. Awesome. If we now time warp round to, I believe, what's going to be the light side of the moon, and then we can start our burn when the counter ticks down to 0. We're at about 28 minutes from our burn point at the moment, so we have a bit of time to wait. And the sun has rised over the moon's surface, and we're almost pointing in the direction that we want to go. I just stop time warping, and I guess we can go a bit further. Actually, Kerbal Rise is a pretty good time to burn. And I need to just line my spaceship up a tiny bit with the marker in order to make my burn most efficient as possible, and throttle up, and then just wait for the orbit to expand. I'm just going to hope that that slight inclination we had when we took off again isn't going to affect us too much. But I can't speak today, it's very odd. Anyway, Bill, Jeb and Jonvis seem very happy in the cockpit, and I probably know why, because they only have 99 meters per second of delta V left to complete this maneuver, and before long they'll be home and dry, quite literally. We're doing 693 meters per second as we pass by our landing site once more. That's almost one complete orbit since we took off, which is pretty impressive. And you can see that we have actually achieved lunar escape. And so I'm just going to do this little burn in bits so that I don't pass up my transfer window too much. And you can see that our apparatus is moving around to the position where we want it. Of course, the further it moves along, closest to the end of that blue line, the lower our periapsis will be. And the lower the better, because it means we'll need less delta V to swing back round the back side of Kerbal and then re-enter the atmosphere, which is always good. We want to use as little fuel as possible, because we don't have that much left. And you can see that I'm just going to kiss the atmosphere by setting up this maneuver node here. And I'm still quite far out. That was still at 120 kilometers. So, and that's gone a bit too far. You can see our periapsis has disappeared, which means we're actually going to hit Kerbal, which is not what we want to do. And that seems about right, I believe. So, and I'm just going to swing round onto my triangular blue marker again. That blue marker is inevitably your friend. It sets you up for pretty much every maneuver or inclination change that you'll ever have to do. It's really damn useful in situations such as these. I can't really overestimate its importance because it's just so useful in every way. And the game had to sort of think about what it was doing then, but here we are nonetheless. And our burn, we aren't too far out from our burn. And I can't really wait an hour and 28 minutes in. You see, that's what happens when you're far too impatient. You sort of time up a bit too much, and there I go again. Miss your burn window. Third time lucky, maybe. Yes, we missed it a bit, but it's fine. We need a bit less delta V for this one. I'm not quite sure why. I guess it's because our orbit was so close to Kerbal anyway that it's not going to be too much of a problem to slow down, seeing as we're going to be hitting the atmosphere quite late on. which will have quite a prominent effect. But you can see how the orbit has formed quite a potent eclipse shape as we slingshot our way out of the moon's SOI, sphere of influence, which I think is quite cool if you think about the forces involved. To sort of pull yourself out of one gravity well into another, and you just get a really kind of sense of sheer speed at the rate at which you're going. I just thought that would be a slightly interesting diversion, but there we are, and we are almost through our burn. We've only got like 20. Actually, I'm burning the wrong way at the moment, and I've cocked this up a bit. Actually, that doesn't look too bad. I'm just going to come up slightly short. And once again, I have to think about how far the rocket would time warp, but everything seems good. I think our periapsis is a bit lower than I intended, but that shouldn't be a problem, unless we actually end up landing on the desert. I've got to cancel that maneuver node because I don't need it anymore. I should probably point retrograde at this point and then ditch the service module, the bit on the other side of the decoupler, before I hit the atmosphere, just so there's less sort of, I'm carrying less momentum through the atmosphere, and so the parachute will deploy safely without tearing off. And here comes re-entry. Look at the fire! Fire! Burn! Burn! Yes, more of that. That is really, really awesome. That's a Kerbal shooting star. And there goes the service module, streaking away across the horizon. And now we just have to wait for the optimum time to deploy the main parachute. I just like to say the squad have worked quite a lot on perfecting these re-entry effects, and I believe they're only reintroduced in 0.19 before the 0.20 update, so they haven't really been around that long. But nonetheless, they've done a cracking job. I mean, look at the white hot heat shield on the bottom of the command pod there, changing colour as you slow down and speed up. The attention to detail is phenomenal. But anyway, I'm going to stop time warping and then sort of, yeah, it looks like we're going to actually land in the desert, and so that I've got no real choice apart from to pop the parachute, which I just did obviously, and then just time warp all the way down to the ground. I sure hope the three Kerbals are proficient in desert survival skills and they don't get eaten by scorpions or ants or anything like that. And pop goes the chute. That is fantastic. And that concludes, in fact, a successful moon landing and return mission. And of course, Bill, Jebediah and Jonvis Kerman are going to go down in history, Jebediah especially, for his record-breaking piloting skills. And so, of course, will Jonvis Kerman, the newbie on this mission, Bill, as you can see by the colours on his spacesuit, is a veteran at this sort of thing, but nonetheless, take care, comrades, and I will see you for episode 3. In the meantime, goodbye.